Alright, what's up y'all? My name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, a clothing company where we address the human body's natural function, coming at it through the skeletal system, but really coming at it through clothing because it's the only thing that's placed physically onto our bodies, so it can potentially alter the body greatly if it's imbalanced in any way, left to right, front to back, oversized. But we talk about the skeletal system because the fat content amount changes throughout our lives, and the musculature changes, the amount of muscle mass we have changes throughout our lives. But the skeletal system always just has its only neutral positions and always just has to be in its only working position. So what we do here is allow the body to work. There's three sides to our company. On this side here, the main side, I address the human body's natural function. We talk about the anatomy in depth and clothing, free modifications, all the things that we do. We have two other sides to our company. In the Image Clothing Company podcast with discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, and In the Image Clothing Company music. I'm a fingerstyle guitarist. I address setups of guitars and everything that we do when it comes to just approaching making music as a human being because it's a physical thing that we're doing. Now, for everybody, man, woman, tall, short, skinny, fat, any age, any part of the globe, any time period, clothing needs to sit in the same location for everyone because our skeletal system just has its only neutrals, as I was saying. I will address, it's noisy here and I like that. I just made a video right before this one titled Looking Straight Ahead, and this is a location I haven't filmed In the Image Clothing Company videos at before, but I like it because it shows how real we are. I'm not trying to make this anything it isn't. It's just, where can I go to make some good content with some good information for people and their body's natural function. So we have to have our pants be entirely above our hips. If our pants are all the way up off our hips, then there's no restriction to the whole pelvis as a unit. Now with the angle of our pants, they need to be slightly higher in the front than the rear because these core muscles need to stay shortened / contracted to be activated. The body always will only ever work as a whole, and there's no reason it wouldn't unless something was altering it. So yeah, we need to keep our top seams evenly behind the little bones on the peak of our shoulders. Keeping those seams behind those bones keeps our shoulders in their neutral position behind our bodies. And for the edge seams, they should ideally be right at the very edges of the shoulders. These ones could be slightly higher on this specific shirt, but that's where they need to be just to allow the body to continue to be unaltered. Now, In the Image Clothing Company has two additional prerequisites. I understand it's noisy, but like I said, I like it. We'll wait for Mr. Turbo Whistle Truck to get a little bit farther away. We have two things we call prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company, and the reason why they're different than just where clothing sits is because there's not always laces within what we place onto our feet. There's not always tags within our clothing that we place onto us, but there is only one way that you can weave a rope across the top of the human foot to shape that weave the way that the top of the human foot is. That's what we call In the Image Clothing Company shoelacing technique, found where you can find In the Image Clothing Company on the internet. And with that, we tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside on both feet to the center line of the body. The body has to stay centered. We stand on an earth with gravity. We sit on an earth with gravity. There's a spine, a sternum, the nose, the trachea, the jaw, stabilizing the entire body. It all needs to stay centered. And we have to keep things opposing evenly to allow that to happen. Like what I talked about in that video I just filmed, looking straight ahead. Now, removing tags is our second prerequisite because anytime there's a tag within clothing, it's either causing a physical gap, just altering the body's skeletal system's only working position, and or deactivating that musculature that's against that tag, and then the body has to compensate. If anything within the human body isn't working correct, something else and many things have to do some sort of compensation, and the body only actually works as a whole. So what I'm going to actually talk about within this video is keeping the hips and the shoulders separated. And this is something that needs to be kind of really described, because if you just say that after what I just said about the body having to always only work as a whole, yeah, we want the shoulders working together with our hips, but what we don't want is from an external source, being like a top that we're wearing, our shoulders to be like connected to our hips externally. What'll happen is, as you can see on this shirt, I've cut off this bottom band of stitching that was on this shirt, and I do this often with shirts that I wear, at least at this time period. Today's the 25th of March, 2025, and the reason I do that is because that stitch is on the inside of the clothing, and it's really grippy. And what you can notice as well is I often cut off my belt loops. Now, it's not so often people are seeing the waistband of my pants because I wear them where they need to be for no restriction to the human body above my hips, and then my shirt goes below that. But the reason I do that is because then my shoulders can just move and have their functions without my hips having to like go with them, quote unquote, in an unnatural, like outside of my own body type of way. Because what'll happen is, like I said, it needs to be seen kind of pretty well explained. Yes, the shoulders and the hips go where the other ones go, right? The shoulders go where the hips go where the shoulders go. Even right there, my head should have stayed looking straight, like that last video I just filmed, but I was a little bit distracted and I could feel my core deactivating, okay? So what we actually need to do is not have something pulling here when this moves, because that will actually hike our hip. If this seam of the shirt is catching on the pants, or if the belt buckles of our pants are catching on our shirt and then combined, because that's what it would be if they're right against each other, what actually happens is you go to reach and see how this moves, the shirt tail. If I were to have these things catching on each other, the pants and the shirts, or even just one catching on the other, then my shoulder going here would actually bring my pelvis with it. And now that rotates my spine and deactivates my core and changes my feet and changes my whole body, because, and the rotations, for the reason of something not being able to do its function without pulling something else from an external area, right? Because within the body, yeah, it all works as a whole and it all goes where any of it else goes, where any other part of it goes, but the body's designed to work with and around the body. It's like how when I talk about dental work, and I say the human body can adjust for its own teeth, but once you place something artificial in there, like a cavity filling or any kind of retainer or anything in the mouth that didn't naturally be there, right, that has been placed inside, the body can't adjust, the jaw can't adjust, the teeth can't adjust for an unnatural thing. So yeah, the shoulder will move, and by itself, without the hips having to do like unnatural compensation, everything will just continue to stabilize to allow the natural functions to happen. But then on an external lens, if you will, the clothing will pull the body like how the cavity filling will move the teeth, right? It's an unnatural type of addition to the body, okay? So what we need to do is keep our shoulders separated from our hips, right? In the sense of clothing. Because what'll happen a lot of the times is, one of the big moments we notice this is sleeping. When you're sleeping and you have a shirt that's too long and it's coming down like over your glutes, now what happens is, if you're trying to like move in your sleep, your shirt will get caught on your pants and rotate your hips, and now you can't breathe, keeping everything just how it would naturally be, activated and centered, because your shoulders are being twisted by your hips or your hips are being twisted by your shoulders because of what you're wearing, okay? And another thing is, when we bend over, I don't mention this so often, and I've been being kind of a little bit convicted about, I should probably start saying this more often. Verbally within content, I wear things that are waisted, but tops need to be waisted. I made a video one time last fall in 2024 titled "Tops Need to Be Waisted," but if we're going to bend over, we don't want our hips determining what our shoulders do from an external source, clothing. We don't want our shoulders determining what our hips do from an external source, which is clothing. So if I turn and I'm going to bend over, you'll see my shirt tail back here doesn't get caught on my glutes, and my shoulders can do their natural things. And because my shoulders are moving, they won't be altering my hips, right? There's two ends of everything within the body, because like insertions of muscles, they have to connect somewhere, right? So if I'm gonna bend over, right, my shirt tail isn't pulling my hips up, deactivating my core and changing my shoulders, because between the shoulders and the hips we have the spine, and it needs to be able to be how it would be, just as everything we talk about under In The Image Clothing Company, natural. If there was no clothing placed onto it, how would it work? That's our goal. That's how we are trying to get our bodies to be able to operate while we do wear clothing. So keeping the shoulders and the hips quote unquote separate when it comes to what the clothing might be doing to them, that's the goal with what I'm saying within this video. So like I said, it's the 25th of March 2025. This is In The Image Clothing Company. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, and we will have clothing available when we do, staying centered, fitting correct, allowing the body to work, as I say, made out of 100% natural materials, and there we go. If you want to ever purchase In The Image Clothing Company clothing, make sure you do only in your size. If you're gonna try to get it oversized, don't, please. Oversized clothing in itself is such a damaging imbalance to the human body. So, well, right? I'm talking about keeping tops waisted. Oversized in any aspect when it comes to a top probably means it's longer than waisted. Okay, so yeah, there's a great example of why clothing has to fit. So, thank you, and check out the other two sides of the company if you'd like to. Check us out as a whole. I mean, stick around if you want, because we talk about things that won't ever change. The human body always only has a hip hinge where it's going to actually bend. And so things always have to be waisted, right? The body has to always only have its natural functions at the shoulder joint and at the hips. And so if they're ever connected by something external, it will always be altered the same way that it is in 2025. We talk about universal truths, as I say, because ideally everything that I'm saying, which isn't the case because I will never be perfect in this life, but ideally everything that we talk about here is just something that will be always what we're saying it is now, because then we're just actually saying things that are valid and that matter, right? A lot of people out there just saying a bunch of nonsense, and cool, but it'd be fine if they didn't even say it at all. We're trying to say things here that will just last forever, help people forever. And I can make this video with all the background noise and with all the whatever and whatever and whatever, how unprofessional it may seem. And this one video here, somebody can watch 100 years in the future, even 1,000 years in the future, right? And the things will still apply. So, thank you. I want to make it very clear, we can't restrict the body. I don't know why I'm saying this so strongly within this video, because I don't normally take a time out to say this type of thing, but as we say within everything that we talk about, right? You can't. There's nothing that we can do to restrict the body and then expect it to work. There's no kind of compensation that we can do. We talk about things under In The Image Clothing Company podcast, for example, like dieting. You can't go eat something that's pretty unhealthy and then try to compensate it with something that is healthy. That thing still went into your body, the unhealthy thing. We can't put clothing onto us that's damaging our bodies and then go try to do something we call a workout or cardio to kind of combat what could be happening within either end. It doesn't work. The body's always only now. The body's always only what it is, and it always will only ever work as a whole and as our living God, Jesus Christ, designed it to work. And there's no opinion I can have on that. And so that's why, like I say, we discuss truths. That's how they are true. That's how it's apart from all of us, because we didn't design it, we can't decide it. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and that's the title. So anyway, check us out. That is one big thing I don't talk about so often, as I said, and that's huge, because when I do mention shoulder seams need to sit behind the shoulders, they're not going to stay there if they're being caught on your hips. And by them being caught on your hips, I just mean the tail end of the shirt, because like me bending over, it's going to catch in the rear and then just move your shoulder seams around, even if your shoulder seams are fitting correct at the edges of our shoulders, and even if the design is allowing them to be behind the shoulders up here, we have to keep our body's hinges open, right? Our body's hinges open. See this separation between where the hinge is here and the sleeve? Same thing here. Hinge is here. So if your shirt's too long, your shoulders are what's actually being altered. And that felt weird to do. See what I mean? And the reason it felt weird to do is because I put my body into a position it doesn't work in. And that's really what happens. That's one big thing that gives confidence to people, is by allowing their body to just work. If your core is not activated because it's being twisted by your shirt getting caught on it and deactivating it, you're never going to be able to feel confident because you can't even breathe. Okay, so it's as real as it is, it's as obvious as it is once you see it, right? I say these phrases within the Image Clothing Company because that's just how it is. So thank you, and thank you. I just don't want to cut this out without saying something. I was getting ready to cut it a few minutes ago and I felt like there was more to say. I just don't want to cut myself off. So yeah, side seams, there we go. Side seams within shirts, I talk so often how ideally we don't ever have them. Within button-ups that go over something we've placed directly against us, like an undershirt, that's okay. But right against our bodies, those side seams of the shirt, kind of like these seams on the pants, right? The ones on the sides, they will get caught on the pants, okay? So, and then it's almost unavoidable, because like here, I've cut off the seam down here, but then there'd still be a side seam if there was, and also it would just come unstitched anyway. So yeah, tubular t-shirts, just one single piece of material is the ideal for things placed directly against our bodies. So yeah, and then when it comes to button-ups as well though, sometimes you'll have the stitching on the sides be not even, and so purchase In the Image Clothing Company clothing if you'd like to. We'll just have every intention to have no restriction to the body, but anything that you do purchase button-up wise or anything over you, even with a tubular t-shirt underneath, make sure that shirt that's over with the side seams is evenly stitched on the side, so you can like pull it front to back and it's not rotating and it's not coming down and being pinned and stitched and twisting the body, because side seams alone will just twist your whole body from your shoulders to your hips anyway. So, and that's a rotation, right? To the spine. Okay, so thank you. That's where I'm going to cut it, and thank you. I guess, I mean, I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe not quite yet though, and I'm not sure why. I'm just not trying to cut it premature. So this video has felt weird to me, but in a good way. I think it's a really hard-hitting one, and it's also very unstructured, the way that I've made this, especially mostly just the noise actually and the location. But the shoulders have to be alone. Upper trapezius muscles, neck tension, shoulder alteration in any way, it's probably coming from the tail of your shirt, at least, right, if it is. And so, I mean, it can be coming from anything though, the tips of your toes, right? At the shoe lacing, meaning just what's encapsulating our feet. But yeah, tops have to be waisted. One of those things I couldn't hit too hard, but if we can just understand our own bodies and learn where the joints are and that they just need to be able to be there, then from there, we just know what we can place onto our bodies without restriction. So that's what we do here in the Image Clothing Company. So, thank you.